You know what I think?
What's that?
What do you think, Ryan?
I think The Sims sucks.
Really?
Yeah,
Not a Sims fan?
No.
I don't think it sucks. I think it's an interesting game. It's just I don't like a time. I think it's a time management simulator. I mean, even in the second game, it was a time management simulator. It's all about you have this amount of time. What do you choose to do with it?
Yep.
And
that's like what we already do all day.
Yeah, it just wasn't. It wasn't compelling to me.
A lot of people say, "Why do I want to, go to work and wash dishes?"
I think it's a great game. I just think it's a great game that's not for me. It's a great game that's for millions of others of people.
That's what I mean
fine.
when I say it sucks.
Oh, okay.
Aha.
I don't really
now
think
you've clarified
it's a bad
suckitude.
Suck means not for me.
Yeah. I saw a
Suddenly I've decrypted the entire internet.
Onion article. This might be a really old Onion article, but I just saw it yesterday, so it's new to me. But the title of the article is, "You know what sucks? Everything I don't like. Everything I don't understand."
I like that.
Yep.
What's the
That's Ryan in a nutshell.
For some reason, Sims and sucking is making me think of Sims Online.
Oh.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that when you were social elements of the game, because The Sims Online was basically The Sims meets other people, and it just became this boring chat room.
ASL.
Yeah,
it's kind of like it was Second Life without the porn, right?
I think
from what I heard, it wasn't
porn.
without.
Yeah.
Oh, it had plenty of porn. Okay,
that's what I was. Yeah,
it was just tiny and pixelated. I think.
I never got into The Sims Online.
But you would think
I was shocked when it flopped.
Yeah, you would think it would be executed properly, that it would be an amazing game, except I think it kind of brings out the disconnect between people playing real lives and then playing, people in real life, people playing lives offline, but then when you're online, it's that whole thing of anonymity and online isolation, and you can just suddenly be the ultimate jackass retard, and everybody does that.
Well, it did generate its own drama. The Alphaville Herald was based on Sims Online, right?
Alphaville is one of the cities in The Sims Online. I think there are like 16 cities.
Yeah, there was basically before people were doing guy who embedded himself as an embedded reporter in Sims Online and would report on all the horrible, hideous things that people were doing to each other, the backstabbing and the machinations in Sims Online. Like, based on his blog, I don't know how much of it was factual, but apparently a good amount, because it made a lot of people angry.
People behave horribly in online situations. I mean,
it was like The Sims without anything nice about it.
Yeah, MMOs are the same way. People we perfectly get along with in real life will flip out about the stupidest crap because your actual name is
you took my simoleons. I hate you forever.
Yeah. It's a strange psychological thing.
Ryan, do you have to go someplace?
Yeah.
Oh, he's clock watching.
Yeah.
The Sims Online is now free and called EA Land, by the way.
What?
Yep, this was as of 2 days ago.
It was pretty recently, yeah. They redubbed it EA Land.
That's bizarre.
Who doesn't want to go to EA Land?
It's the happiest place on earth.
Well, for some reason, I suddenly have this image of like the ancient front end for what was that? Sierra Online Land, or it was like a 2D
Hey, now that was awesome.
I knew somebody would remember that shit.
Sierra Land, Sierra Network.
Don't just Sierra in front of Ryan. That's
it was cool. It had like this little post office with a mailbox box where you got your mail. It had like different.
You had like the.
You could play Red Baron online with it.
There's that. There was Larry Land.
There was
Shadow of Eusebius.
Yeah,
there was all the different the card games and stuff you could play.
But you have fond memories of Sierra as a brand. Like no one is like, man, EA.
Hey,
coolest brand.
Dude. I mean, I have fond memories of old Sierra. I bet people have memories of old EA.
I can't wait to go to Desert Strike Land. It's gonna be great.
That's true. I used to love EA back in the day.
Yeah. See.
If it's like game construction.
Yeah. If it's old EA Land, that's cool. If it's modern EA Land, I can live without.
Yeah. Like, would you go to modern Sierra Land?
No.
But you could be Gordon Freeman, or like some dude who wanders around saying, "Gordon Freeman, you're like a god to us."
My God, to be
Jesus.
That's all right. I'm all right.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, do you have anything to say before you go?
What the hell?
What the hell? You put me on the spot.
Yeah.
No pressure.
Any final parting words?
No, I have nothing.
Okay, get out of here.
All right. Oh, wait. Final Fantasy VII.
Get the hell off my podcast. Go now.
Sucks.
Go.
All right. I'll catch you guys later.
Bye, Ryan. Thanks for stopping by.
Bye, Ryan.
He's quietly sneaking out.
Do we really have anything else to say about The Sims, SimCity, etc.?
I'm thoroughly simmed. You sim?
I am simshiated.
Have we?
I'm happy because I had to get
resources.
Had to get my shout out to Simtropolis.
I don't know.
Simtropolis is a great site. Seriously, if you're a Sim fan, I mean, I can't. It's like payback for all of the great content and help I ever got on all the Sims games.
Yeah. Do they have like downloadable stuff?
They have tons of downloadable stuff. They have a great active
You have to watch out for that stuff though, because I was talking about my ex-girlfriend and her virtual reality version of Us. She downloaded like pets for The Sims before The Sims had pets, and apparently like there was some bug with them that caused both of us to catch diseases and die from hamsters. I don't even know how that happened,
wow.
but that was the end of domestic tranquility.
Well, I think their plan for like The Sims 3, and I'm assuming anything else going forward, is having a big central exchange where you have star ratings and can comment and say this is going to bug out.
Well, it only makes sense because that happened whether they wanted it or not with the original Sims.
Yeah,
and of course even before that with SimCity.
I mean, you're going to see that sort of everybody picking up on the YouTube dig Little Big Planet sort of aggregation of all that content, letting people use or create and rank and share.
I'm surprised they're not going as deep, because I think when we walked in to go see The Sims 3 for the cover story, I thought, knowing what we know about Spore and the pollination and all that other stuff for Well Rights doing, we were assuming this is the natural place to continue doing that. And they didn't really say that they were going to do that. They kind of hinted that, figured that out.
From what I've read and from what you're saying, it sounds more like the sharing element in Sims 3 will be more overt, more something that's user driven, whereas in Spore it's something that happens in the background. Your game just seeds other games, whereas in Sims 3 it's more like you choose to share things, you choose to download new things.
Do you think they'll let users
still pretty early
create like everything in The Sims 3? Like could someone be a fashion designer? Could someone be a furniture designer?
Oh, yeah. Or I think you already can in The Sims 2. That's one thing I don't really get into. I mean, I think you need to have like a pretty robust background in creating digital assets to be able to do that, but
I bet there'd be people who would really into that. They should come up with a good tool set.
They've got to come up with something better than they've got to come up with something better than they had in My Sims. That was. Did you ever play that?
No, I didn't.
It was a good idea, but basically everything in the game came down to building furniture for people, and it was all Wii remote driven. Kind of. It was all driven with the Wii remote, and there was a very very grids and trying to manipulate things in virtual space with a single pointer just didn't work so well. It was very frustrating. But I like the idea.
I was kind of interested in that.
If they could take that and refine it and not dumb it down for the Wii interface so much, I think that could be really fantastic.
So to me, My Sims look kind of like Animal Crossing without the cute animals.
It really tried. It was somewhere between the console version of The Sims and Animal Crossing. Okay. More emphasis on the console version of The Sims. It kind of had like a cutesy Nintendo makeover. But there were some elements of Animal Crossing, like your town would grow and you tried to get new people to move into your town.
Okay. But it certainly didn't connect to any degree the way they expected or hoped it would.
It just didn't work out. The game didn't come together. I had high hopes for it when I first saw it. I was at the event where they revealed it, and it seemed like it had potential, but the game just... there just wasn't enough to it. It was again, like I said, with the herbs, where repetitive and grindy. It wasn't so bad because you didn't have urges and needs and things to attend to, but even so, there was still just a lot of tedium and repetition.
But in that regard, you brought up Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing is not just especially deep. I mean, you very quickly get through your...
The thing with Animal Crossing, though, is that everything is very carefully divided into kind of a diurnal rhythm. So you do a certain amount of things per day, and that's really all you can do per day. Like, once you're done doing your daily duties, there's really nothing else to do. So maybe you write some people some letters or something, or go to someone else's town. But really, after like half an hour, you just put the game away. Then you come back the next day, and there's the same sort of thing to do. So you break that out. Whereas the sim games aren't really divided up like that. So it's easier to just play like multiple days worth of content at once, and then it starts to feel more repetitive because you're doing that all at once.
Right, you're allowed to play 8 hours instead of forced to stop after 2 or whatever.
Really, really into that little chunks of daily gameplay. A lot of their games do that. Us and Puzzle Planet League have like daily challenges. Brain Training or Brain Age is obviously built around like 10 minutes of content per day, but they're doing that with a lot of their games.
I think it's really smart. And I think the other part about Animal Crossing, I mean, not to sound over simplistic about it, is that it created a place that you wanted to go back and have those daily events in because it was just fun, right? It was just fun. It was a very great escapist sort of place.
It's still,
I loved Animal
you
Crossing.
made your friends.
It needs a little more social interaction. The DS version was a good step in the right direction by letting people come into your town, but I think it needs to be more persistent. I think you need. So, supposedly people will be able to come into your town in the Wii version, like while the game is sleeping or whatever.
I don't know about that.
My hopes for Wii Online have taken great blows.
Yeah. I mean, this was what everyone's original vision for the game when the Wii was first announced. And online, you can go on the Wii while it's asleep, but that may not work out. But if Animal Crossing Wii does turn out to live up to its potential, which is unlikely given that Nintendo knows potential with their online stuff. It could be amazing. Then
Has
again,
yet to live up to any potential.
They never do. So far, they have yet. They might someday, but I'm not confident.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that's kind of a different rant in and of itself.
Indeed.
But it is good that you brought up Animal Crossing because that is kind of like
Seems
The
like
Sims, but with a very Japanese focus. I think.
Yeah, it always struck me
it has a very non-American mindset about it. And it creates a different experience.
So did My Sims not build the same sort of relationships? Because, I mean, that
really didn't.
You'd go over to people's houses and you'd have your friends and you were sending letters back and forth and exchanging presents and, you were really building and involved in the sense of community. If someone left your town, you're like, damn it.
No.
Right.
Look, how could I convince you to stay?
But I gave you gifts. I wrote you letters. I was so nice to you. What the hell? Why'd you take off?
And when someone showed up, you were like, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't know what it was about My Sims, but even though it had different characters with names and some very generalized person, they just never really felt as interesting as the Animal Crossing characters. And maybe it's because they didn't have as much dialogue. One thing that Animal Crossing really has in spades is tons and tons of varied incidental dialogue for characters.
Yeah.
You play enough and you'll get the same dialogue trees over and over again.
It takes a while, though.
It takes a good while.
There's tons of dialogue in that game, and it gives the NPCs a real feeling of personality, like they really belong in the city.
Yep.
Especially when you gave them their catchphrase. I got some unrepeatable ones, though. I was always afraid. I was like, please don't leave and go to some little girl's town, please. Oopsie. Oops.
So anyway, I guess that's it for Sims.
Sims.
And Animal Crossing, apparently.
And Animal Crossing.
And whatever else we brought in.
Tropico.
Great game.
Great game.
That is a really good game. If only for the Banana Republic sort of.
That's on Steam. If it's on Steam, maybe I'll try that out this weekend.
All right, well,
or probably not.
Both of you and Ryan. And talking.
Well, thanks for having us.
It was a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thanks for saving my zombie ass this week.
You didn't seem very zombie-like. You were
because of the coffee.
Ah, yes.
My Red Bull kicked in about 10 minutes in.
I've been half asleep all day until I had my coffee. Now I just have the bathroom meter urge rising. So
better take care of that.
Yeah.
Before.
So you better sign off now.
Yeah, I have a very high cleanliness rating, so I don't deal well with accidents and messes. Right. Anyway. So, from TMI Land, this is Retronauts signing off. Next time will be... I don't think we have an assignment for next time, or a topic. So, join in 2 weeks from now. It'll be
Earthbound again. Earthbound, the RPG show.
We haven't really talked about Earthbound in a while, but I think we'll wait a little while on that one.
Hi everyone, James here. I just want to say before we do this week's show, Andrew, myself and Anne Miller are going to be on Only Connect this week. It's on Monday night at 8:30 on BBC Two, so tune into that if you want to see us answer some questions. Anyway, time for the show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of No Such Thing as a Fish, a weekly podcast brought to you from the QI offices in Covent Garden. My name's Anna. I'm joined today by fellow QI elves James Harkin and Andrew Hunter Murray, and also special guest today, historian and Horrible Histories writer Greg Jenner, who has a book to plug, correct?
Yes, plug. It's called A Million Years in a Day, and it's out now, and it's quite good. It's quite good. Yeah,
it is good. Some of us have read at least bits of it. It's amazing.
I wouldn't go that far, but it's all right.
It's above average.
I would say it's definitely sort of top 70 percentile. It's a 2-1.
Okay, a high 2. it. Okay, let's get on with the show. And for fact number 1, let's go to you, Greg.
Okay, so my fact is from my book because I am that unimaginative. And my fact is, in the 1960s in America, there was one particular bus route that was only 35 miles long, but during that time, passengers passed through 7 different time zones.
Wow.
That's amazing.
How does that work?
Right, so it's fairly complicated, so I'm going to have to give you probably a bit of context.
Okay.
So this is all to do with daylight saving time, which is something we have here, of course, in Britain, and it's a familiar concept to all of us. But it was an idea first put forward about 100 years ago by William Willett, who was a mustachioed Englishman. He was also the ancestor of Chris Martin from Coldplay, you know, for your fans of
Who wrote Clocks?
Exactly. There we go. See, so he put that forward in about 1909, I think, and he was arguing for trying to get more daylight into the time. And so everyone went, "Well, this is a nice idea in principle, but it's not going to do it." And then in 1915 he died, and everyone was sort of mocking him, and the idea was going nowhere. And then Germany picked up with the idea and said, "This is a brilliant idea. We will do this."
They did it during the war, didn't they?
They did it during the war,
and it was like it saved them energy.
Yeah, because that extra hour of daylight meant you didn't have to burn loads and loads of gas and oil, and that could then go to the war effort.
When he died, did everyone miss his funeral by an hour?
So as soon as Germany adopted it, Britain very sheepishly went, yeah, maybe we should do that as well. And it became known as Willet time, which is like hammer time, but with a moustache, I think. And anyway, it then spread around the world, and America adopted it. And the problem with America is it's a much bigger nation than Britain. And so America has loads of time zones, and it's too big. And so the government says, all right, come on, let's be sensible here. We're a federal nation, so each state can decide if they're going to opt in or opt out.
Yeah.
And then the problem is that each of the states then said to the towns and cities, okay, you guys can also decide if you're going to opt in or opt out. And so 28 of the states opted in to DST, and then the various cities would then decide, oh, we can do it, we're not going to do it. And so what happened is you ended up with this incredibly chaotic system to the point that in Idaho, shops that were next door to each other might be on different times. So in the same building, like you could literally go like next door to the corner shop
This
to
is
get
amazing.
Like,
This
some
was
milk.
in the 1950s and 1960s.
Until
this was
1966, this was happening.
I just want to say, how did it work with the two shops that were next to each other? It reminds me of a place I went to called Baal Hertog on the border of the Netherlands and Belgium.
Right. Oh yeah, the exclave place.
Yeah, so there's loads of exclaves, and the border between the two countries is really, really complicated. And they have the lines you can see on the pavements. You can see where the lines are, so you can like walk from Belgium to Netherlands, then back into Belgium, then back into Netherlands again. And it's something like the Netherlands rules on selling pornography are supposed to be so much better than Belgium, so all the pornographic shops are in Netherlands and all the fireworks shops are in Belgium. Even though they're in the same town, they're all put in different buildings.
That's I think that's a mad idea, isn't it? But I think I'd certainly go to Canada to go drinking.
Do they?
Yeah.
Because in Canada, like, I think it's 18 is legal age. In America, it's 21.
This is, in fact, there was a golf club set up on the border of the US and Canada during Prohibition as a way for Americans to be able to drink. So the drinking club within the golf club was on the Canadian side of the border. So you could enter the golf club in America and then you kind of wander over to the side which had a pub, go drinking.
It's a brilliant idea.
Yeah. But I think William Willits, one of the reasons people thought he was crazy, because his system was quite complicated. So he was suggesting going forward by 20 minutes of daylight a day, right?
Yeah, he suggested...
Which is very complicated.
I think he suggested, I can't remember exact details, but he suggested changing the clock something like 6 or 7 times a year.
Yeah.
Which is just a bit too much faffing. And also people had only just got uniform time. Because until the coming of the railways, every town in Britain had its own time. I think Bath and Bristol were, I think, about 7 or 8 minutes behind London. And so when the trains arrived, that became chaotic because people missed their trains, obviously. And then William Willett turned up and went, hey, guys, what if we all changed our loads of times? You know, at really annoying dates. And we'd all get an hour back.
It was the railways which actually made the first time zone.
Yeah.
It's called railway time.
Railway time.
Which is so cool. And all the really interesting legal implications over what could happen. So if babies were born at the same time, but in different places, that, you know, a whole inheritance could be changed. Because technically, you know, the child had been born earlier, therefore got the will or the inheritance or whatever. So all of this happened only because of fast speed communication. So trains, telegraphs, that kind of thing.
Yeah. The amazing thing is, I mean, so going back to my original fact, this 35-mile route, you had to change your watch, I think, every 8 minutes.
I mean, did people actually do that?
No, I
on
don't
the
think
bus?
so. I mean, I think maybe if you're like really into timekeeping.
Yeah, I bet there was one really nerdy schoolboy.
But it's just sort of this amazing idea that you'd get on a bus, and it was only 35 miles. It's between Moundsville, West Virginia, and Steubenville, Ohio. And during that time, you would pass in and out of time zones, back and forth, back and forth, back
That's
and forth.
so cool.
What you guys were saying about different towns having their own time in America as well. And in the 1870s, North America had 144 official times in all the different towns and stuff.
144.
Wow.
Yeah, and if you went from Washington to San Francisco and you wanted to be this nerdy schoolboy who changed his watch all the time, you'd have to change it over 200 times.
No way.
But in fairness, it's a long journey and you need to do something to take up the time.
Yeah.
Podcasts had not been invented
No.
to be listened to in
No
transit.
Sudoku yet. It's just watches. But I mean, the problem with timekeeping is a really ancient one, and this is something I sort of tried to cover in the book of it. Is that the ancient Egyptians were trying to work out what time it was via the stars and via solar clocks, but back then there was no standard 60-minute hour.
Is it true that in the Middle Ages they used to, they would have, say, 12 hours in a day, and that would be from sunrise to sunset, and so if it was a longer day in the summer, then the hours would just be longer?
Yeah,
Is that
exactly right? Yeah, they basically, I mean, there were scholars who kind of went, hey guys, I think we should have actual equal hours, but it didn't really work. There's no point being smug if you're stuck.
That's so interesting. So when it seemed like in the summer term the hours were going really slowly because you're waiting for the holidays, it's because they were.
Yeah. Because until the invention of like gas lights and stuff, when people actually could have artificial lighting, people just went to bed when it got dark.
But
So they
how
went
did
to bed
people
at
know how long it was? Like, how did they know in advance?
Sand timers and water timers.
Okay.
The ancient Chinese, or the medieval Chinese, had clocks that you could smell. So each hour was a different incense. So it burned down, and so you'd be like, oh, it must be lunchtime because I can smell ginger.
Oh, it's
So
Valentine.
What's for lunch? Ginger.
So yeah, the history of timekeeping is really, really confusing. It wasn't until I think the 14th century that it was a Muslim scholar, I think in Syria, who came up with the first equal hours clock.
Before that would have played help with things like Woman's Hour. Welcome to Woman's 72 Minutes.
It still is really complicated, time zones and timekeeping and everything, isn't it? Like, some countries have the most eccentric systems. When I lived in Australia, they have various bits of Australia that have it in half-hour increments rather than in hour increments. And some places have it in increments. I think there's a town of 200 people in Australia which has decided to be GMT plus 8 3/4.
Brilliant.
So
The town of bloody Awkwardsville, Australia.
I'm trying to work out, so how many time zones do we think there are in the world? So if you just count an hour...
They're
the
divided along
increments. 15
15 degrees across the world since the 1880s, I think it is.
So there should
in
only be
terms of-
24,
I think so,
basically.
yeah.
Except there are 26 because there's a little group of islands which decided to put themselves to... Because they did more trading with America.
Oh, really?
They decided to join
Oh,
America's
yeah.
time. So if you look down the... International date line, it's got a really weird kink in it. It's not a line at all because it scoops these islands in.
Is that
So-
Samoa or American Samoa or Tonga?
No, Samoa's different.
Tonga?
Samoa's the one that went in 2011. It decided to go back a day, didn't it? So it missed out the 30th of December 2011. Sorry, it went forward a day.
Forward
It went
a
forward
day,
a day.
yeah.
But I did get an extra day on the 4th of July 1882? 1892.
Use it wisely.
Yeah.
So I reckon what would happen is everyone would celebrate the day before because it's like a big event. Everyone would be hungover to hell on that day, do anything on that day at all. And then the next day they go, what do you do on your extra day? Oh, I just stayed in bed.
Yeah.
I'd love there to be like a Doctor Who episode that's set in the lost days
Oh,
that
yeah,
don't
that's a good
exist.
idea.
Oh, yeah.
Like some sort of weird quasi-universe where...
Pitch that. That's great.
Yeah, I don't actually watch Doctor Who, so I don't know how it works, but it would be...
It's like that.
Like that, basically, yeah.
In fact, that made a lot more sense than a lot of the Doctor Who storylines. So, anyone else?
Some things on buses.
Oh, yeah, buses.
Seeing as we were talking about
Oh,
that
yeah.
at the start. So there is a bus driver in Moscow called Alexei Volkov who is known as the Punisher because he deliberately rams people who cut him up.
Really?
Wow.
When you say cut him up, do you mean people who stab him with a knife? I'm going to cut you
No,
up.
I'm afraid not. If you've driven in Moscow, it's like that all
Yeah,
the
I was
time.
just-
Everyone's cutting you up all the
That
time.
is a weirdly visceral metaphor, isn't it?
Yeah.
For just someone driving in front of you a bit close.
Yeah.
Going to cut you up.
Cut me up.
I wonder if there's ever been a confusion in a police station on that. If anyone's ever got a really long prison sentence unnecessarily for just slipping in front of someone
All I
in a
did was
car.
cut him up, governor.
All right, now it's time for fact number 2, and that is Andy.
My fact is that if a predator gets too close to a limpet, the limpet will lift up its shell and then stamp on the predator's foot. How cool is that?
So how fast does it do that? Because I think of limpets as being quite slow moving.
They are slow. They generally get about a metre away from their home before going back.
Brilliant.
That's a
And
big
they do this-
outing.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
a long
yeah.
weekend for a
And they have to get back before the tide comes in, so,
Why do they leave their home then? If they're only going a metre, what are they looking for?
They are looking for food.
Are
They
they?
are hungry for algae. they love an algus.
The other thing is they'll stamp on your foot if you go too near them, but they only have one foot, don't they? They're just a foot. That's all a limpet
They
is.
are the foot, but they've got the shell all around them, so that's the painful bit.
Oh,
So
really?
the muscle, the foot muscle, is in the middle, and then obviously the shell, crunching down between the predator and the rock. Things like starfish like to eat them, and
yeah.
I don't think they can do it very fast, but it's called mushrooming.
Why is it called mushrooming? Mushrooms don't stamp on you.
They go up on their foot, and the shell is around them. They look like a mushroom if viewed from the side.
Oh, I see.
But that's just a theory. I don't know
Like
that's true.
it.
Yeah. And so anyway, they move across. They go commuting basically for algae, and they move across very, very slowly. And they have this tongue called a radula, which they scrape over the rock, and it's got 1,920 teeth on it.
Whoa.
Yeah. Hardened with iron compounds. Basically, if these things ever decide to grow bigger, we are stuffed.
The compound is called Goethite, I think.
Is it?
Named after Goethe, the author.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, it's quite a long story. So it was named by a guy called George Lentz, who was a friend of Goethe. And if you read any books, it says that it was named in his honour.
Yeah.
But actually, these two guys fell out quite early. He introduced Lentz to his sister, and we don't know. His sister was married, and we don't know what happened. But then a little bit later, Lentz was kicked out of the court of Weimar, and then Lentz then named this mineral after Goethe. But it says it's in his honour, but these two didn't get on, and so I think that it was named against him because he didn't like him. And it's this thing which is found in the tongue of a limpet, but it's also found in mud. And I think he was like literally making his name mud.
Nice.
It's a good theory.
Good theory.
Yeah.
So limpets then.
Limpets.
Their commute sounds thrilling,
Yeah, it is.
but doesn't algae come to them?
No.
Right.
Well, in a way, yes. I think they filter water through their gills, but they do also definitely go across the rocks in
Right.
search of food, very, very slowly.
They also migrate, limpets.
How
Yes.
far? Are
Not
we
very
talking?
far,
I mean,
a few
since-
metres.
About a metre, yeah.
But in the winter...
Do they have to-
do they go south for winter? 3 metres.
they move up the shore, so it depends which
Yeah.
direction the shore is.
If you ever
I
see a
guess.
flock of limpets in a V shape, that's them migrating.
It's for better aerodynamics, that, isn't it?
Exactly.
When they go, they leave a trail of mucus behind them.
Right.
When they go across, scraping the rock with their tongue and getting all the algae up off the rock. But then the mucus they leave behind them actually encourages more algae to grow on it. But that's basically farming. They are encouraging more food to grow in the path they have been in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not only is it's quite advanced farming. If they're rotating, are they enclosed?
Well, it's
Does
not
enclosure
combine
reach
harvesters,
them?
is it?
But they do get subsidies from the EU for it.
Do they have a butter mountain?
An algae mountain.
And-
Right, here's a question, and you may know the answer to it. And I'm going off topic here, but how many bacteria would you have to have before you could see them in a lump? What would a mountain of bacteria look like?
It would look like a load of pus, basically.
Really?
But
How do you know that? Just before we get on to that, how do you
Do
know
you
that
have
it would look like a mountain
some
of
weird
pus?
diseases?
I
James is harboring?
think I might have read that in one of XKCD's things,
Oh,
either in the
cool.
book or on their website.
Surely it would depend on the kind of bacteria. Some of it.
Yeah, aren't
Does
some
it all
bigger
look
than
the
others?
same?
I think it would look like a big shimmery, ish, bluish.
So like the Blob
lump.
from like the classic
Yeah.
Hollywood movies in the 60s or whatever.
But I mean, James sounds like
think
he's
I've said-
actually done some research
I
on
think
this.
I've
so-
said this before. The Blob is based on a real police report. I might have said this before, actually.
Really?
Yeah. It was based on a police report in America in the 1950s about a mysterious blob.
Which turned out to be a giant cluster of bacteria.
If you haven't seen The Blob, it's such a good film. It's got Steve McQueen in it.
Yeah.
A really, really young Steve McQueen, and the Blob eats everyone.
Oh, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
So it just swallowed things up and digested them.
Yeah. There's a great bit where a farmer gets angry with it and fires a gun into it.
That's not gonna work.
'cause
I
he's
bet that
terrified.
doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
It just eats the bullets and gets a fraction bigger. And
Again,
then-
guys, spoiler alert.
Sorry.
Come on.
Yeah.
What, we were talking about bacteria. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
a bacteria
bacteria.
that you can see, I think.
Right, but
The
it's
biggest
phys-
bacterium, I think, might be nicknamed Conan the Bacterium by the newspapers, and I think it's
Is it
big
visible
enough.
to the naked eye?
I think it
Just
is.
one of them.
I believe so.
That's amazing. We've mentioned in one of our books that bacteria can get viruses.
Viruses can get
And then
viruses.
big viruses can get small ones.
They found a big virus. It was in a cooling tower somewhere in the UK, I think.
Yeah.
And it was a massive, massive virus. And then they found another one, and it was orbiting the original virus, and it's called Sputnik, they called it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Again, it might be a newspaper nickname, I don't know.
So it's like a satellite virus.
Yeah.
Just going round and
Yeah.
round it.
If you dropped a load of bacteria
Right.
out of a plane,
Okay. How much? A blob's worth?
yeah, a blob's worth, say, would they fall, or would the air currents be enough to just keep them up there forever?
Oh, interesting.
That's what a cloud is, Andy.
It's just a load of bacteria.
Yeah.
Well, a cloud needs something for the water droplets to nucleate around, and sometimes that would be bacteria. I imagine.
Really?
Yeah.
I imagine it would usually be like dust or sand, but I bet it could work with bacteria.
They've just done a trial of cloud seeding, or they've done a studies of cloud seeding, which is where you drop a load of iodine crystals from a plane, and then those are the tiny, tiny crystals which the water droplets form around, and then you get rain or snow. And they found that it does have a small positive effect.
They don't think enough to deliberately do anything to the weather. Like, you could probably make a difference, but it's not reliable enough. So
Yeah, you can't just wake up and go, it's a sunny day, that was me. That was my cloud seeding.
We did cloud seeding just before summer this year, and we're very proud to report it's been a barbecue summer.
Can you tell we haven't done any limpet research?
I've got lots of limpet research.
Okay, let's hear some.
I'm keen to talk about limpets. Limpets are all there's basically no such thing as a limpet, which is good. Yeah. So limpets don't really exist.
I think they do, Andrew.
I think they don't, because it's just a name for aquatic snails with basically conical shells.
Right.
That's all it is. It's a very informal term. Lots of different things that we call limpets come from different different phyla.
There is a thing called a common limpet, isn't there? I think.
Yes, there is.
And that'll be a specific species.
And that's very informal.
That's a
it wears
specific
jeans
species.
and doesn't take its shoes off when it comes in.
The way Wikipedia describes limpet...
It's exactly how I've just described
It's
them. 'cause
exactly just off the bit that it adds. So a limpet is a common name applied to aquatic snails with shells broadly conical in shape, rather like the conical Asian hat. Which I've never seen Wikipedia open with a simile.
Nor a
They're
slightly racist simile.
Yeah, no.
What's the conical
They're
Asian
talking
hat?
about, if you took a slightly racist picture of someone from Asia from the 1950s,
Yeah.
and they'd be like a rice farmer with their hat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a conical, like a broad, like lots of
Yeah.
shade. Because if you're working outdoors as a rice farmer, then it keeps the sun off your head.
Yeah.
So starfish eat limpets, don't they? Or
Yes,
try to.
they do.
And the way starfish sometimes eat things is they sort of make their stomach go to them, I think, rather than them going to their stomach. So I think starfish expel their stomachs out of themselves and then swallow them up into their stomach. So I guess like a limpet, when it's trying to defend itself, might stamp on a starfish stomach. Is that what it does?
I think it might
assume
do,
that
yeah.
happens. I assume there are starfish stuck by the stomach somewhere by a limpet.
Have you heard of starfish wasting disease?
No.
Yeah, it's very sad. It's a kind of getting a bit bigger at the moment, and it basically gets starfish to waste themselves by ripping their own arms off.
What?
Yeah.
They